Quick demo of this tutorial. This is a step-by-step tutorial on how to create Angular 4 application from scratch to implement CRUD operations using Firebase. Application deals with employee details. Here we have a form to insert and update records, and here we have a list of employees that we have already added. In order to insert a new record, you can do this. Click on submit. So here you can see the newly added record for Emma Thomas. In order to update a record, you can select the record. It will populate the employee details inside this form. Then you can update the employee details here. Click on submit. So here you can see that James Jones record is updated to James Thomas. In the same way, in order to delete a record, you can select the record and click on delete here. Then it will ask for confirmation. Click on OK. So here we have deleted record for Thor. I'm sure you will find this tutorial helpful for your upcoming projects. So please watch till the end of this video. What's up YouTube? Welcome to .NET Mob. In this video, I will show you how to implement CRUD operations in Angular 4 application using Firebase. Before starting this video tutorial, I would like to ask you a favor. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up this video. If you are new here, please be subscribed to this channel .NET Mob. This is my Visual Studio Code editor. I will be using this IDE for demonstration purpose. First of all, we have to create an Angular 4 application. For that, let me open my project folder inside this IDE. Click on open folder. Then I will select the folder here. So I'm going to save my project inside this project folder. Select folder. In order to create new Angular 4 application, you can use the Angular CLI commands in your command prompt, or I will use integrated terminal inside this IDE here. In order to create new Angular application, you can use this command ng new, the name of your application. I will name this project as Angular Firebase CRUD. Hit enter. Currently it is creating the project. It will take some time to complete this process, so please be patient. So here we have created the application successfully. Now we need to run this application. In order to run this application, first of all we have to navigate into project folder like this. Then you can use this command ng serve, then -- open, hit enter. It will compile and open your application in your default browser. In my case, it is Google Chrome. So here we have opened our application in the port 4200. This is how the application looks like. First of all, I am going to add Bootstrap and Font Awesome icon into this application. For that, expand this folder src. Inside that, you can see the file index.html. Here I am going to add the CDN path reference for these two style sheets. Here we have added Bootstrap for styling, components and designing our application, and we need to work with Font Awesome icons, so I have added the Font Awesome icon here. Now it's time to add new components inside this application. For that, let me open one more terminal. Right click on the folder, then click on open in terminal. As you can see here, my folder path is too long, so we have to hide the path. For that, you can do this prompt $, hit enter. So here we hide the folder path. Let me close this explorer. In order to create new components, you can use this command ng generate component, then component name. I will name this component as employees. In short, you can use C for component and G for generate. Hit enter. It will create new component inside our application. So here you can see the newly created component inside app folder employees, and here we have one CSS file, one HTML file, and one file for testing purpose. Then we have the TypeScript file here. Apart from this, it will register or import the newly added component inside app module like this. Now we need to create two more components inside this employees folder. So first of all, we have to navigate into employees folder like this. Inside src, we have app folder. Inside that we have employees folder. Then hit enter. Now we can create rest of the components like this. ng g for generate, c for component. Then name your component here. I will name it as employee. Hit enter. We need one more component. So ng g c, then component name employee hyphen list. Hit enter. So here we have created all the components that we need for this application. So we don't need this file right here, this one file with extension .spec.ts. This is for the test purpose. Let me delete that. And from the child component, then employee list. So far our application looks like this. Now we need to design this application using Bootstrap. So go to the index.html. Here we have the index.html. Here it is loading the default component app component.html. So I'm going to get rid of this default HTML inside this file. Instead I will do this. We need a div with container as class. Then hit tab. You may have seen shortcut like this with Emmet extension, but Visual Studio Code Editor implements these shortcuts by default. If you want to create a div element, you can do this, type div, then hit enter. Then it will create opening and closing tag for your div. If you want to create a div element with class called MD6, you can do this, then hit tab. It will create the div with specific class. It will make the process more easier and you can focus on your logic and design. Let me get rid of this extra div here. Inside this container div, I'm going to show this component here, employees component. You can see the tag for component here. Let me copy this and paste in here, then hit tab. So here we have added the employees component. Inside this employee component, we are going to show these two components, employee and employee list. Let me open the HTML here. Instead of this default paragraph, we need a div element. Inside that we need an h2 header with text employee register, and we will set the class Jumbotron from Bootstrap, and we will set this div style text align is equal to sender. Below that we will show these two components like this, div with class raw, then hit tab. Inside that we need to add two sections for these two components right here, div dot call md7. Then we need one more div, so let me copy this and pasting below that. We will change the class to call md5. Inside this div we will show this one, this component employee. Let me copy its selector from here, copying and pasting here, then hit tab like this. Let me copy this component tag from here and pasting here, hit tab. Let me save all of these changes. Now let's look the application here. So here you can see the app title showing employee register. In the first half it will show the form to add new employees. In the second div it will list all of the employees present. Before continuing with this project, we have to create a project in Firebase. If you are new to Firebase, you can do this. Search Firebase in Google, then click on this link here, Firebase. Firebase is a product from Google, so I am already logged in with my Gmail account here. Click on go to console here. Now let's create a project. For that you can click on this add project, then name your project. I will name it as employee register. Click on create project. So here we have created the Firebase project successfully. in order to interact with this Firebase project and to do CRUD operations like insert, update, delete and list, I will use this package Angular Fire 2. This is an official Angular library from Firebase. I think latest version is around 5.0. I have given this GitHub link in video description. Inside the GitHub link you can see some of the documentation about how to use them in your application. In order to install this package, I will copy this npm command from here. Then back to Visual Studio Code Editor. Let me open one more terminal here. Then navigate into project folder like this. Then I will paste the npm command here. Then hit enter. Currently it is adding Angular Fire 2 and Firebase modules into this application. So here we have done with installation of the package. Now back to Firebase project. Then click on this add Firebase to your web app. Then copy this configuration from here. Back to the application. Expand this environments folder. Then open this file environment.ts. Here I will add the copied configuration as Firebase config. Now open your app module.ts file. First of all, we have to import classes from Angular Fire 2. Let me paste the import statement here. First of all, we have Angular Fire module, then we have Angular Fire database module. Now we need to initialize this Angular module with this Firebase configuration. For that, you can do this. For that, I will do this inside imports array. We can initialize the Angular module like this. Angular module dot initialize. Now inside this parenthesis we have to pass this configuration. So I have to import this environment constant here. So I will do this import from, first of all we have to get out of this app folder here. Here we are inside this app folder and we want to navigate into this environments folder. So we can add two dots here, then / environments / environment, and we will import the constant here. Now we can pass the configuration here environments dot Firebase config. That's it. Now back to Firebase project. Click on database. So here we are going to save our employees list. Now we have to change some read and write permission inside this rules tab. I will set it as true so that anyone can write and read this project. Then click on publish. Now it shows a warning message, anyone can read or write your database. I will dismiss this message. Now back to Visual Studio. Now we need to create employee model and employee service class. For that I am going to add a new folder here. I will name this folder as shared. Inside the folder we can add service and model classes. So right click on it, then open in terminal. As you can see here, my folder path is too long, so I'm going to hide this file path like we have done before. So you can do this prompt, then $, hit enter. In order to create a model class, there is no specific command in Angular CLI, but there is a command for creating classes in Angular applications. That will be like this: ng, then g for generate, then class. I will name this class as employee dot model, then hit enter. So here we can see a file with name employee.model.ts file. So this is the recommended way of naming model classes. From class name we have to get rid of this suffix .model. Inside this class we will add properties for employee. First of all, I will add name for storing full name of the employee. Then we have position, it's of the type string. Sorry, we have to use semicolon here. Then we have office, it's of the type string. Then finally salary. I will save it as number. Apart from these properties, I'm going to add a new property, $, then key, it's of the type string. So this property is to identify each record inside Firebase. It's like primary key in our SQL server. So here we have done with model class. Now we need to create the service class. For that you can use this command ng, then G for generate, S for service, then name your service here. I will name it as employee, then hit enter. So here we have created the employee service. Apart from that we have a test file. I'm going to get rid of this test file. Inside the employee service class you can see these default codes here. By default it is importing injectable from Angular core and it is marked as injectable. Basically all of these services often used to inject inside project components. Now I'm going to create a property selected employee. It's of the type employee model is equal to new employee. In order to use this employee class here, we have to import this employee class inside this service class. For that we can do this import from employee model and we will import employee class here. For now we have done with employee service. Now we need to inject this employee service inside these components here. In order to give you a brief idea of this application structure, I have created a text file like this. In total we have 3 components: employees, then employee, then employee list. This is the parent component. We are creating these components as child component, employee and employee list. So here we are going to inject this employee service into this parent component employees, and we will use the same instance inside this employee and employee list. That means when we change property inside this employee service, the same change can be seen from all of these components, 3 components. Or you can say that if I update employee list property inside the service class from this component employee, we can see the same change inside this employee list component also. If you can't understand what I have said now, don't worry, we will see all of these in a bit. Now back to Visual Studio Code editor. Now let's inject this employee service inside this component here. Employees.component.ts. First of all, we have to import the employee service here. Import from shared folder, then employee service. So here we are importing employee service class. When we inject service classes into a component, we have to include the service class inside providers list like this. Providers is equal to employee service. Finally, we have to create a private object of the type employee service. Employee service is of the type employee service. Now in order to consume the same employee service instance inside this child component, we can do this. First of all, we have to add the import statement for employee service from. First of all, we have to get rid of this employee folder, then shared folder, then employee service. So here we are going to import employee service here. And now we need to just declare a property like this inside the constructor. Let me copy this and paste in here. Now we need to do the same inside this employee list component, and we will copy this employee service property or parameter inside this constructor. That's it. So I am going to design the employee form inside this employee.component.html using this property. This one, selected employee from employee service. So inside this HTML employee.component.html, I am going to design a form using TDF method or template driven approach. So I will add a form tag here. We don't need this action attribute. Instead of that, I will set a local variable for this form. Employee form is equal to ng form. Then I will set the submit event like this. Ng submit is equal to on submit. Inside that we will pass this local variable employee form. Now we need to declare this function on submit that we can do after form design. First of all, I will add a div with class form-group. Inside the div I will add a label. Then label text will be like this, name. After that we will add an input element with class form control. We don't need this type attribute. By default it will be text, so I will remove this one, and I will set the name attribute is equal to name. Then I will set a local reference for this input element, and we will set it as ng model, and we are going to bind properties from employee service using two-way data binding. So we can do this. Ng model is equal to, inside the component you can see that we have injected service as employee service. So I will copy this and pasting here. Inside the service, here we have a property selected employee. So we can do this, employee service dot selected employee dot name. Name is a property inside employee model class here. Finally, I will set the placeholder like this, full name. Like this we need to add 3 more components. So I will copy this div and pasting below that 3 times. Now we need to change label text and input attribute accordingly. So I will do this. Instead of name we need position. Then name will be position here. Then selected employee dot position. Then placeholder will be like this, position. I will do the same for remaining controls. Finally, I will add a div with class form group to add buttons. So we can do this, form group button with class btn, then btn hyphen default. Like this we need 2 more buttons. So let me copy this and pasting below that. First button is for submit, so I will set the type as submit, and rest of the component type will be button. Type is equal to button. Let me copy this and pasting here. So I will set this button text as submit. Then second button is for delete purpose, so I will set the text as delete. Then last one is for reset. In order to work this template driven approach, we have to import forms module and ng form class inside our application. So first of all, I will import ng forms here. Import ng forms from Angular forms. We have to import ng form here. ng form, and we need to import forms module inside app module.ts file here. Import from Angular forms. We will import forms module here, forms module, and we will use this forms module class inside this imports array here. Along with this Angular Firebase module, we have to import this Firebase database module here. So I will do this. We will be using these Angular package classes in a bit. Now let me save all of these modifications and let's check the application in our browser. So here we have the form to do operations like insert and update in Firebase. Now I want to style some of these components by adding font over some icons. First of all, I will add a font over some icon for this submit button. So let me search a button for submit. Let me search save here. So I will be using this icon floppy-o. For that I will add an I tag here with class far and far hyphen floppy hyphen o. Then hit tab. So here we have added the font over some icon for submit button. Let me copy this and pasting here for delete. For delete we will be using far hyphen trash, and we need to add an icon for this reset button. So I will copy this and pasting here and changing this class as repeat. Let me save this and back to the application here. So here we have added the font over some icons into these components. Finally, I want to add font over some icon dollar inside this salary text box. So I will add a div element with class input hyphen group. Inside that I will add one more div with class input group hyphen add on. Inside that we can add the I tag with class far, then far hyphen dollar. Now we will move this input element inside this input group div, and we have to keep this label before this div. Now let's check our application here. So here we have added the dollar symbol for salary text box. So here we have done with employee form to insert and update employees. Now let's start implementing CRUD operations inside Firebase. So we will be implementing Angular Fire CRUD operations inside this service, employee service class here. For that we have to import required classes from the package import from Angular Fire 2 /database. We want to import Angular Fire database and Angular Fire list. In this tutorial we are using latest version of Angular Fire 2. I think it is around 5.0. You can see the version here inside package.json. So here we are using Angular Fire 2 5.0 RC2. So this one is latest updation inside this version Angular Fire list. In previous versions we were using Firebase list observables instead of this Angular Fire list. First of all, I'm going to create an object private Firebase. It is of the type Angular Fire database. I will create an object to store all of the employees here. So it will be employee list. It is of the type Angular Fire list. It can be any type, so I will set it as any. Then I will define a function get data to get all of the employees added to Firebase. So we can do this dot employee list is equal to this dot Firebase dot list employees. So in this Firebase project we will be saving all of the employees under a node with name employees. So that's why we are retrieving all of the records under this node employees. And finally we will return this dot employee list. Apart from that, I'm going to define a function insert employee to add new employees to the database. And here we have a parameter employee. It's of the type employee. In order to add or insert new records, we can do this dot employee list dot push. So we'll be inserting details like name, and we can pass the name from the parameter name. So let me copy this and pasting below that 3 times. Position is equal to employee.position, then office is equal to employee.office, then salary is equal to employee.salary. So this will insert new employee record with these given details under this node employees. Now we need to call these functions from respective components. First of all, I will call this getData function inside this employee list component. First of all, I will import Angular file list here from Angular file2 / database, and we want to import Angular file list. And we are going to create an object or list of this type. So we can do this employee list, it's of the type Angular file list, it will be of the type employee. So in order to use this employee model class here, we have to import employee model class here. So I will copy this service import statement. Instead of this service, we need employee, and we will import employee class here. Inside onInit function, we will call the getData function here. So we can do this dot employee service dot getData. So we have initialized or retrieved all of the employee list that we have present inside this node employees. Now from the employee component here, we will insert new records. Here we have mentioned a submit event on submit. We can implement this on submit inside this employee component here on submit, and we have a parameter form, it's of the type ng form. In order to define this parameter, we have imported this ng form class from Angular forms. We will call the function from employee service insert employee here. So we can do this dot employee service dot insert employee, and we will pass the form data. So we can do this form dot value. So this property form dot value will provide the values from these form controls inside this form employee form. So here we have done with insert operation. Let me save all of the modifications and let's check our application here. I'm going to add a new employee. And click on submit. Now let's check our Firebase project here. You can see that here we have a new record under employees node. This is the key that we were talking when we create employee model here, this one, $key. So here we have inserted details of James Smith. After operations like insert, update and delete, we need to reset these form controls. For that, I'm going to create a new function inside this employee component, reset form, and we have a parameter for this function form. It's of the type ng form. This dot employee service dot selected employee is equal to name is equal to empty string. Then I will copy this and pasting below that 3 times. This one is for position and this one is for office and this one is for salary. Salary is of the type number, so I will set it as 0. Finally, we have to set the key property $then key is equal to empty string. So this will clear input controls inside the form. Before that, we have to call reset function from this form variable. So we can do this form.reset. So this will reset some of the flags for the form. Now we can call this reset form function inside this onSubmit event. This dot reset form, inside that we can pass this form variable here. Now I want to call this same function reset form inside ngOnIt lifecycle hook. So we can do this dot reset form. Now you can see a red squiggly line here. That's because we are not passing value for this form parameter. So I will set this form parameter as nullable. So in order to call this function, this parameter is not mandatory. Now we need to add an if clause here. If form is not equal to null, then only we need to call this reset function. Now let's call this reset function inside the reset button click event here. So I will add a click event here. Click is equal to reset form. Now let me save this and back to the application here. I'm going to add a new employee. Now click on submit. So here we have inserted record for Fiona Green and we have reset this form. Now let me enter some test data here and click on this reset button. So reset button is working fine now. Now let me check Firebase project to check whether we have inserted record for Fiona Green here. So it is already added there. Next we are going to implement validation inside this employee form. So that I'm going to make this name input as mandatory. For that we can do this. We will add a required attribute inside this name text box. Required. Let me save this and reload this application here. Now let me inspect this input control here. So here we have two classes in discussion, ngPristine and ngInvalid. Since we have made this input text box as required, right now it is empty, so it is invalid. That is why we are seeing this ngInvalid class here. And this ngPristine means we have not changed value of this input control from its initial value. So that's why we are seeing this ngPristine and ngInvalid. When I enter something inside this text box, these two classes will be changed. So here you can see that when I entered some text inside this text box, you can see that ngInvalid is replaced with ngValid and ngPristine is replaced with ngDirty. So using these two classes, we can show validation error messages. So let's look how we can do that. Inside this application, here we have a style sheet, styles.css. Inside this style sheet file, we can add global CSS rules. In order to indicate validation error for the text box, I will add this CSS rules here. If input element has these two classes at same time, ngInvalid and ngDirty, then we will show the border of input control as red. Now let me show you that. Let me save this and back to the application here. Right now you can see that it has classes ngPristine and ngInvalid. When we enter something inside the text box, you can see that it has classes ngDirty and ngValid. When I clear this text box, you can see that it has classes ngDirty and ngInvalid. So we will apply these CSS rules in these cases. Now I want to do one more thing to prevent submitting invalid forms to controls. For that we can do this, go to the component HTML here and look for submit button here, and we will add disable property here. Disabled property. We will disable this submit button control if form is not valid. Negation symbol, then employee form dot valid. Right now this form is invalid because this text box is empty. If I enter something inside this text box, submit button is enabled. Now it is time to show employees records that we have added inside the Firebase project here. So let's look how we can show these records inside this second div here. That, back to Visual Studio Code Editor, then open the component employee list. In order to list employees records, we will be using this property employee list, and here we have declared it as Angular file list. Instead of that, we need an array, so I will set it as employee array. So we don't need this import statement for Angular file list. I will remove that. Inside this getData function, we are retrieving the Angular file list, and I'm going to assign this returned Angular file list inside a variable here var x is equal to Angular file list. Now we are going to subscribe and iterate through the list observables to get the employee list. For that, we can do this x dot snapshot changes dot subscribe. Inside this subscribe function, we can define an arrow function. First of all, we will initialize this employee array here. This dot employee list is equal to an empty array. Then we will iterate through the data snapshot array item. For that, I will use for each loop item dot for each. Inside that, I will declare an array function element such that now we will retrieve these data: employee data, name, office, position and salary. For that, I will declare one variable here var y is equal to element dot payload to JSON. So this will return a JSON data containing informations or data like this. And now we need this key for identifying each records. For that, we can do this. We will add a new property $key is equal to element dot key. And finally, we will push this object inside this array. So we can do this dot employee list dot push, and we will push this object y, and we will cast it as employee. Now we have all the employees inside this employee list array. Now we can use this employee list array in order to show the employee list inside this HTML. Instead of this default paragraph, I am going to add an UL element with class list group. This is a class from Bootstrap, and then we need one more class. However, this is a custom class. We need to define this class inside the style sheet. Then hit tab. Inside the UL element, I will add an li element with class list group item. Hit tab. Now we are going to repeat this li element to the number of the employees present inside this database. For that, we can do this star ng4 is equal to let employee of, then I will copy this list from here, employee list. Inside the li element, I will show the employee name, employee dot name, then hyphen, we show the employee position, employee dot position. Sorry, here we have misspelled list group item. Let me change that to list group item. Now let's check our application here. So here you can see the employees record that we have added inside this Firebase object. Now I want to add some CSS rules to show hand when we hover on this li element and these buttons. For that, open your style sheet here, global style sheet, style.css. So I will copy paste the required CSS rules here. when user click on any one of these li elements, we want to show the selected employee details inside this form, and user can do the update operation for the selected employee record. For that, we will be adding a click event for this li element here. For that, I will add a click event here. Click is equal to on item click, and we will pass this employee object inside this function. Now we need to define this on item click function inside this component here. So we can do this on item click, and here we have a parameter emp, it's of the type employee. In order to show the selected employee details inside this function, we just need to change this property inside this service, that means this one, selected employee. So I will do this dot employee service dot selected employee is equal to emp. Now let's save all of these modifications and back to the application here. Now I will select this employee record, James Smith. So here we have populated details of James Smith. Now in this state we can implement update and delete operation. Before that, we need to add a hidden field inside this employee form because we need to identify each records using this key. So I will add an input element here. It's of the type hidden. Name is equal to $key. Then I will set the local reference hash $key is equal to ng model. After that, we need to bind data using two-way data binding. So I will copy this one and pasting here. Instead of name, we have $key. Now back to the application. Actually here we have a problem. When we select an employee record from this list, it will show the details inside this form. When we edit details of this employee, same changes can be seen inside this list also. That will be a problem when we have a lot of employee records. It will affect your application performance. So instead of passing reference inside this on item click, we need to pass a copy of this object. For that, we can do this object dot assign, and we will pass the emp object here. So this will create a copy of this object emp, and we will set this object inside this selected employee. Let me save this and back to the application here. I will select the first one. If I edit employee name inside this form, corresponding employee name inside the list remains same. In this state, user can do update or delete operation. So we will be using this same form for update and insert operation. So we want to make use of same submit event in order to do insert and update operation. So let's look how we can do that. Here we have the employee component. Now we need to identify whether we want to do insert or update operation. For that, I will make use of this key value here. If key is equal to empty string, then we can say that it is an insert operation. Otherwise, it will be an update operation. So I will add if clause here. If form dot value dot $key, if it is equal to empty string, we can say that it is an insert operation. In the else part, we will do the update operation. For that, we have to add one function inside this employee service here. So let's add one more function for update operation. Update employee. We have a parameter emp. It's of the type employee. In order to update a record inside Firebase, you can do this dot employee list dot update. First parameter will be the key, so we can pass key here emp dot $key, and next parameter will be the object, that means actual data of employee. So we will pass like this, name is equal to emp.name. Like this we have 3 more parameters. So I will copy this and pasting below that 3 times. Instead of name we have position, then office, then salary is equal to emp salary. Now let's call this function inside this employee component here. This dot employee service dot update employee, and we will pass this form value or employee object for the selected employee. Let me save all of these modifications and back to the application here. So I am going to edit this employee record for James Smith. I will change this name to James Jones. James Jones. Now click on submit. So here we have updated the record for James Smith to James Jones. Next we are going to implement delete operation. First of all, we need to hide this delete button when this form is in insert state. For that I will do this. Look for delete button, then we can add this ng if is equal to employee service dot selected employee dot $key is not equal to empty string, then only we need to show this delete button. Let me save this and back to the application here. Right now delete button is hidden. If I select one item from this list, we can see this delete button here. Now we need to add click event for this button in order to implement delete. For that we can do this. I will add a click event. Click is equal to on delete, and we will pass this form object here. So I will pass this employee form inside this function. Now we need to declare this function inside the component here. After reset form function, I will define this on delete function. We have a parameter form, it's of the type ng form. Now inside this, first of all we need to confirm the operation because delete is a loss of data. For that I will add an if clause here. If confirm the operation by asking, are you sure to delete this record? If user confirm this operation, it will return a true value, then only we will do the delete operation. For that I will define a function inside this employee service here, delete employee. In order to delete a record from Firebase we need a key, so I will set one parameter here, it's of the type string. Now inside this function we can do this dot employee list dot remove, and we just need to pass this key here, key. And we can call this function delete employee from this component here. This dot employee service dot delete employee, and we just need to pass the key value. For that we can do this form dot value dot $key. So this will remove the selected employee. Now we just need to reset this form. For that we can call this function reset form, this dot reset form, and just pass this object form into this function. Let me save all of these modifications here and back to the application here. Now I am going to delete this record for Fiona Green. So select this record and click on delete. So it is asking, are you sure to delete this record? Click on delete. So here we have deleted the record for Fiona Green. Finally, I want to make a few corrections here. Here we have set default value of hidden field, that is $key, as empty string. When we call this form reset function, it will set hidden values to null. Even though we are setting it as empty string, this function makes hidden fields null. I don't know why it happens, so I decided to make null as a default value for this $key. So we need to make few more changes here. Inside the onSubmit event, we are checking with the default value here. If form value dot $key is equal to empty string, then we go for insert operation. Instead of empty string, we need to use null. And we need to make the same change inside this condition to show and hide delete button here. Instead of empty string, we need to use null here. In this tutorial, we have discussed step-by-step tutorial on how to implement CRUD operations in Angular 4 application using Firebase. You can download this project source code from the link given below in video description. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up this video, and for more awesome videos like this, please be subscribed to this channel .NET Mob. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and colleagues so that they can benefit from this. Have a nice day. Bye.